Hello, let's take a look at the prerequisites needed to install Paladin Cloud. While Paladin Cloud monitors multiple different cloud providers, it does require an AWS account to install, so the first thing we'll need is an AWS account. Then we'll need a virtual private cloud that we can install into. We're going to need to set up a role with installation privileges. And then we'll need to configure an EC2 instance with the repository code that can run and actually create all the needed assets. The first thing we'll need to do is log into our AWS account. Once logged in, we'll want to verify we have a VPC that we can install into. Thankfully, we can use the default VPC, which is what I'll use for this demonstration. If you want to create a custom VPC, check out our documentation on the settings you'll need to be able to do that. Next, we'll create a role with permissions to install Paladin Cloud. For production installs, you'll want to use the principle of least privilege and itemize out the different security permissions for this role. We have a CloudFormation template in our documentation that does all of that for you. But the fastest way to set this up for testing purposes is to set up a role with administrative privileges. We'll do that for this demo. The last step we need to do is configure an EC2 to run Paladin Cloud. Now, the easiest way to do this is to use our provided community AMI. You can see the different regions it's available in our documentation. If the AMI isn't available in the region you're in, just copy it over and use that to start your EC2. Let's look at the settings we need to configure. First, we'll give our AMI a name for this instance. Then we'll need to choose the size. We're going to want to go with a T2 extra large. And then we're going to need a key pair. You can use an existing one or create one here on the fly. This will allow us to connect in. We'll want to make sure that this is installed in the VPC that we intend. If you made a custom one, you'll select that here, or you can use the default one. The default storage is plenty. We'll use that. And then we'll choose to launch instance. This will create the EC2 that we need to begin installing Paladin Cloud. Next, we'll attach the Paladin Cloud installer role we created earlier to this EC2. To do that, we'll go to Security, choose to modify the IAM role, and attach the installing role we created earlier. Now we're ready to connect into our EC2 instance. There's a few ways to do this. I prefer SSH, so let's look at how we would SSH in. Now, just as a note, I am using a Mac, so I'll be using this via the terminal here. Your steps may be slightly different if you were connecting in via a Linux box or a Windows machine. First, I'll navigate to where I saved my file earlier, and then I'll run the command to change the permissions for it. Next, I'll use the SSH command to connect in. For this AMI, the root connection is not allowed, so we'll need to change that to be EC2-user. And that's it. We're now connected in to our machine and ready to install Paladin Cloud.